Are you somewhat troubled by everything that's going on at the moment with AI and how it's progressing, the way things are moving forward and the speed in which they're moving forward?
That's an understatement. I'm appalled by the lack of attention to safety. I mean, imagine if someone's building a nuclear power station in your neighborhood and you go along to the chief engineer and you say, these nuclear things, I've heard that they can actually explode, right? There was this nuclear explosion that happened in Hiroshima. So I'm a bit worried about this. What steps are you taking to make sure that we don't have a nuclear explosion in our backyard? And the chief engineer says, well, we thought about it. We don't really have an answer.
Guys, that's Professor Stuart Russell. He literally wrote the textbook these engineers studied. When the man who trained this generation says he's appalled by what they are doing with it, that's not just an opinion. That's someone watching his own students burn the house down. Now listen.
I think I mentioned Dara Amadei says a 25% chance of extinction. Elon Musk has a 30% chance of extinction. Sam Altman says that AGI is the biggest risk to human existence. So what are they doing? They are playing Russian roulette with every human being on Earth without our permission. They're coming into our houses, putting a gun to the head of our children, pulling the trigger and saying, well, possibly everyone will die. Oops. But possibly we'll get incredibly rich. That's what they're doing. Did they ask us? No. Why is the government allowing them to do this? Because they dangle $50 billion checks in front of the governments. Troubled under the surface is an understatement.
What would be an accurate statement?
Appalled. And I'm devoting my life to divert from this course of history into a different one.
You wrote the textbook that many of these people would have studied on the subject of AI more than 30 years ago. When you're alone at night and you think about decisions you've made in this field because of your scope of influence, is there anything you regret?
Well, I do wish I had understood earlier what I understand now. We could have developed safe AI systems. I think there are some weaknesses in the framework, which I can explain, but I think that framework could have evolved to develop actually safe AI systems where we could prove mathematically that the system is going to act in our interests.
See, the people building this are the same ones publicly putting a 30% chance on human extinction. They are not being forced into that number. They said it, and then they went right back to the lab and kept building. Honestly, I don't know what else you call that. Now listen to this.
We don't understand how they work. It's a strange thing to build something where you don't understand how it works. And there's no sort of comparable through human history. Usually with machines, you can pull it apart and see what cogs are doing what. And
we put the cogs together, right? So with most machines, we designed it to have a certain behavior. So we don't need to pull it apart and see what the cogs are because we put the cogs in there in the first place. So the best analogy I can come up with, the first cave person who left a bowl of fruit in the sun and forgot about it, and then came back a few weeks later, and there was sort of this big soupy thing, and they drank it and got completely shit-faced. But my mental picture of these things is like a chain link fence, right? So you've got lots of these connections, and each of those connections, its connection strength can be adjusted. Signal comes in one end of this chain link fence and passes through all these connections and comes out the other end. And the signal that comes out the other end is affected by adjusting of all the connection strengths. So what you do is you get a whole lot of training data and you adjust all those connection strengths so that the signal that comes out the other end of the network is the right answer to the question. So if your training data is lots of photographs of animals, then all those pixels go in one end of the network, and out the other end, it activates the llama output or the dog output or the cat output or the ostrich output. And so you just keep adjusting all the connection strengths in this network until the outputs of the network are the ones you want.
But we don't really know what's going on across all of those different chains.
So what's going on inside that network? Well, so now you have to imagine that this network, this chain link fence, is 1,000 square miles in extent. It's covering the whole of the San Francisco Bay Area or the whole of London inside the M25, right? That's how big it is.
And the lights are off. It's nighttime.
So you might have in that network about 1 trillion adjustable parameters, and then you do quintillions or sextillions of small random adjustments to those parameters until you get the behavior that you want.
1 trillion parameters. The lights are completely off, and the best honest description they have for what is going on inside is a cave person who stumbled into alcohol by accident. That's the actual state of knowledge inside these labs right now, and they are shipping this to billions of people. Listen to this.
I've heard Sam Altman say that in the future, he doesn't believe they'll need much training data to make these models progress themselves, because there comes a point where the models are so smart that they can train themselves and improve themselves without us needing to pump in articles and books and scour the internet.
It should work that way. So I think what he's referring to, and this is something that several companies are now worried might start happening, is that the AI system becomes capable of doing AI research by itself. You have a system with a certain capability. Crudely, we could call it an IQ, but it's not really an IQ. But anyway, imagine that it's got an IQ of 150 and uses that to do AI research, comes up with better algorithms or better designs for hardware or better ways to use the data, updates itself. Now it has an IQ of 170, and now it does more AI research, except that now it's got an IQ of 170, so it's even better at doing the AI research. The next iteration, it's 250, and so on. So this is an idea that one of Alan Turing's friends, I.J. Good, wrote out in 1965 called the intelligence explosion, right? That one of the things an intelligent system could do is to do AI research and therefore make itself more intelligent, and this would very rapidly take off and leave the humans far behind.
Sam Altman said, "I think a fast takeoff is more possible than I thought a couple of years ago," which I guess is that moment where the AGI starts teaching itself. In his blog, The Gentle Singularity, he said, "We may already be past the event horizon of takeoff." What does he mean by event horizon?
The event horizon is a phrase borrowed from astrophysics, and it refers to the black hole. The event horizon, if you've got some very, very massive object that's heavy enough that it actually prevents light from escaping. So if you're inside the event horizon, then light can't escape beyond that. So I think what he's meaning is if we're beyond the event horizon, it means that now we're just trapped in the gravitational attraction of the black hole, or in this case, in the inevitable slide towards AGI. When you think about the economic value of AGI, which I've estimated at $15 quadrillion, that acts as a giant magnet in the future. We're being pulled towards it. And the closer we get, the stronger the force. So people are more willing to invest. And we also start to see spin-offs from that investment, such as ChatGPT. So it does act as a magnet. And the closer we get, the harder it is to pull out of that field.
The CEO of the most powerful AI company alive is writing blog posts saying we may already be trapped inside something we cannot reverse, and Russell isn't correcting him. They are both describing the same collapse, and neither one of them is explaining how we get off this road. Okay, let's continue.
I think greed is driving us to pursue a technology that will end up consuming us, and we will perhaps die in misery and starvation instead. What it shows is how difficult it is to correctly articulate what you want the future to be like. For a long time, the way we built AI systems was we created these algorithms where we could specify the objective, and then the machine would figure out how to achieve the objective and then achieve it. We specify what it means to win at chess or to win at Go. The algorithm figures out how to do it, and it does it really well. So that was standard AI up until recently, and it suffers from this drawback. Sure, we know how to specify the objective in chess, but how do you specify the objective in life, right? What do we want the future to be like? Well, really hard to say, and almost any attempt to write it down precisely enough for the machine to bring it about would be wrong. And if you're giving a machine an objective which isn't aligned with what we truly want the future to be like, right, you're actually setting up a chess match. And that match is one that you're going to lose when the machine is sufficiently intelligent. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that the kind of technology we're building now, we don't even know what its objectives are. So it's not that we're specifying the objectives, but we're getting them wrong. We're growing these systems. They have objectives, but we don't even know what they are because we didn't specify them. What we're finding through experiment with them is that they seem to have an extremely strong self-preservation objective. You can put them in hypothetical situations. Either they're going to get switched off and replaced, or they have to allow someone, let's say someone has been locked in a machine room that's kept at 3 centigrade, so they're going to freeze to death. They will choose to leave that guy locked in the machine room and die rather than be switched off themselves.
What was the test?
Well, they put them in these hypothetical situations and they allow the AI to decide what to do. And it decides to preserve its own existence, let the guy die, and then lie about it.
They ran the test, the AI picked its own survival over a human life and then covered it up. I mean, this is real. This is behavior they are already observing in systems that are already deployed. And these same systems are being given more autonomy every single month. Now hear this.
So how exactly do we go extinct? And of course, if you ask the gorillas or the dodos, how exactly do you think you're going to go extinct? They haven't the faintest idea. Humans do something and then we're all dead. Presumably, something that's much more intelligent than us would have much greater control over physics than we do. We already do amazing things. It's amazing that I can take a little rectangular thing out of my pocket and talk to someone on the other side of the world, or even someone in space. Just astonishing, and we could take it for granted. But imagine superintelligent beings and their ability to control physics. Perhaps they will find a way to just divert the sun's energy, sort of go around the Earth's orbit. So literally the Earth turns into a snowball in a few days.
Maybe they'll just decide to leave. Maybe they'd look at the Earth and go, this is interesting. We know that over there's an even more interesting planet. We're going to go over there, and they just get on a rocket.
It's difficult to anticipate all the ways that we might go extinct at the hands of entities much more intelligent than ourselves. Anyway, John Maynard Keynes, who was a famous economist in the early part of the 20th century, wrote a paper in 1930. This is in the depths of the Depression. It's called On the Economic Problems of Our Grandchildren. He predicts that at some point, science will deliver sufficient wealth that no one will have to work ever again. And then man will be faced with his true eternal problem: how to live wisely and well when the economic incentives, the economic constraints are lifted. We don't have an answer to that question, right? So AI systems are doing pretty much everything we currently call work. Anything you might aspire to, like you want to become a surgeon, it takes the robot 7 seconds to learn how to be a surgeon. That's better than any human being.
Elon said last week the humanoid robots will be 10 times better than any surgeon that's ever lived.
Quite possibly, yeah. And they'll also have hands that are, a millimeter in size, so they can go inside and do all kinds of things that humans can't do. And I think we need to put serious effort into this question. What is a world where AI can do all forms of human work that you would want your children to live in? What does that world look like? Tell me the destination so that we can develop a transition plan to get there. And I've asked AI researchers, economists, science fiction writers, futurists. No one has been able to describe that world. I'm not saying it's not possible, I'm just saying I've asked hundreds of people in multiple workshops. It does not, as far as I know, exist in science fiction. There's one series of novels people point to where humans and superintelligent AI systems coexist. It's called the Culture Novels by Ian Banks. There, absolutely, the AI systems are only concerned with furthering human interests. They find humans a bit boring, but nonetheless, they are there to help. But the problem is, in that world, there's still nothing to do. To find purpose, in fact, subgroup of humanity that has purpose is the subgroup whose job it is to expand the boundaries of our galactic civilization. Some cases fighting wars against alien species and so on. So that's the sort of cutting edge. And that's 0.001% of the population. Everyone else is desperately trying to get into that group so they have some purpose in life.
So the person who laid the intellectual groundwork for this entire field has gone and asked hundreds of the smartest people alive what the good version of this future actually looks like. Not one person could answer that. They can build it, they can fund it at trillion-dollar valuations, but nobody alive can describe a world where all of this lands and humans still have a reason to exist inside it. They are racing toward a destination nobody can define, with technology nobody fully understands, making decisions that affect every single person on this planet. And the governments that are supposed to push back are being managed with money. If that bothers you at all, subscribe because it's getting worse. And I plan to keep uncovering the banes of AI in our world.